In the time we're talking about, it was run by a fellow called Roland, and he was a great supporter of sporting groups in Coburg, and he was the first president, as you know, of the cycling club. 20-mile race with the disputed result that did start right from that corner of Sydney Road and Bell Street. The final outcome of that race was, but there was a disputed result, their very first road race, and they had to rerun it a week or two later. And we've got to remember it was an unmade road. The big movement of 8 hours work, 8 hours leisure, 8 hours rest, so it became really important, an important part of a working man's life, that he did have leisure time, and that's where the sporting groups came. But cycling's always been seen as a working man's sport because bicycles are cheap in comparison to cars, and I think that would be the case in the early days too. And it will give you that sense of speed. You wouldn't have to have a horse, you wouldn't have to feed your horse. You could have a bike and just look after yourself. Very rarely played the role of president, but he was always on a committee as a vice president, and in some cases they had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vice presidents. Money in and support for the clubs, yes, so they'd choose people within the community who had some area of influence. When he went out on night calls, he often missed the last train home. And he always used to take his bike at night because it got him home again quickly.
He rode his bike from Warrnambool to Melbourne faster than the train.
Well, of course the train stopped at all the stations and things like that, but that was one of the big stories at the time, you know. Munro Beach, the train to Melbourne, yeah. They stopped at every damn station on the way.
He was also the first Australian rider to finish the Tour de France. He finished it way down the back, that's neither here nor there. For anybody that rides the Tour de France and finishes is a bike rider.
He finished up 19th.
Well, Herx was the trustee of this club when I came in here, and Snowy was like a fly on the wall. Always there. And if you asked him a question, into his pocket would come out the papers, and he'd read the papers, tell you right back to the Warrnambool.
Herx Munro was the saviour of the club.
Herx was the president and he was secretary, treasurer, he was everything. And Dad didn't do that much. He did a lot towards training different guys, you know, to race like Harry Cruz and Ridge. I won a 100-mile Australian Championship, and that started me off, I think. I raced in Europe for 12 months. Very chaotic because we couldn't speak the language. In those days, you went a long way before you found someone that could interpret what you wanted. Paddo was over there.
You were a bit of a fan of old Paddo, weren't you?
Oh yeah, we had a good time together, Paddo and I. Yeah, after he won the World Championship, we got lost for 5 days.
Felt that Ernie Milliken, he and Oppie were basically very similar. He felt that Ernie was probably one of the best road riders he'd ever seen.
The very first one was a gentleman called Les Willoughby. He was in his late 40s, I think, when he won the Warrnambool.
Les Willoughby, I don't know whether you knew him or not, he won a Warrnambool. And he was a great friend of Dad's because Dad trained him.
He had a shop up in Sydney Road, and his brother had a paint shop in Sydney Road, so always if you needed paint of any description, always went to Harry Cruz's.
Roadwood Fatty Lamb. He rode Malvern Star, I rode a Malvern Star. Later day he lived in Port Melbourne.
Reg was a very good track rider as well, wasn't he?
Yes, yeah, sprinter, yeah.
Particularly good on the dirt track, wasn't he?
Yes, that's right. He rode Coburg track very well.
Tommy Steele was a very good bike rider, a good sprinter. Tommy, he was a fast sprinter, but he was a good, one of the best. Ace Goodwin and Jack Campbell would promote me as well on the Sporting Globes.
There's a different atmosphere between riding on different surfaces. When I was racing, we raced on dirt tracks, we raced on grass tracks, we raced on the Essendon board track, and a couple of the concrete ones like the Coburg is now. But there was always something different about all of them. And dirt sort of, when you had the slide and so on that you didn't have on the others, it made it a little bit more interesting.
The dirt track was a shocking dirt track. You'd be better off going for a race up the road.
You learn to ride with not racing a sort of, so.
Alan Goodwin should have been able to tell you, he was a good dirt track rider.
Because they were two separate identities. As I said, like the wall that was in this room here.
Yeah.
The amateurs were amateurs and pros were pros, and never the two shall meet.
We fed off the Brunswick club was amateur, and we fed off the professional club, which was Coburg. We fed off the amateur club.
Well, Pop was in the professionals, but the boys always start in the amateurs. I don't think the professionals didn't have a club to the same extent as the amateurs. Professionals were more individuals.
Funnily enough, there were a few pros that would mix in with us on training rides. There was a bloke called Jim Duclos, won the Melbourne Cup on wheels one time.
I don't think there was any. It just happened. It just happened. I think that with Coburg, it was a state of, there was just a lot of pros, and all they wanted to do was race, and there was only a couple of amateur officials and a couple of amateur riders, and then as a parent, our kids were coming in, and it was convenient for us to all race together. So that's where the barrier got broken, I think.
Clubhouse, train over there, play on the billiard table. We used to play on, it had a full-size billiard table. It was quite a good meeting place, so you used to always go training. If you couldn't go training, you went back to, if it was raining or something like that, you went back to the clubhouse.
Beckett Street, just down near the Grand Theatre, just off Sydney Road. And that's where a lot of these photos used to be.
One big room with two smaller rooms out the back. There was a set of wooden rollers in the floor. You had to lift the flap up to get to the floor. And because I lived next door, I used those rollers a lot for training. And you'd be sprinting and all of a sudden you got a stab in the back. A wooden slat would fly off. You think that had you. But it was good training and it was handy, right next door.
The lamppost, we'd have sprints to certain lampposts up to the Craigieburn gates and back. And we'd be at 20 or 30 or 40 bike riders, and yeah.
Come home from work and I'd have my tea and we'd ride the what they call the 37, go out through Buller, Sunbury, up onto the highway, down through Diggers Rest, round through Keilor and home, and that was our training ride. We either do that twice a week.
Half an hour riding the rollers or something, and then get a rub down or something like that.
So who would be doing the rub downs at the club?
All the guys had different trainers.
We'd go out on a Tuesday night and go out through Mernda and that sort of thing. One bloke with the headlight in front and the other 40 behind with the tail light on the last bloke. It was an entirely different scene in those days. If the coppers saw you, as long as they saw the headlight and the tail light, They didn't bother you.
I suppose you'd say he was very old school. You'd do all your road miles on a fixed wheel road bike. You know, no, like I think the biggest gear I ever rode on the road with him was about a 63 fixed wheel. And we'd meet once again at Dangelo's shop, and we'd go straight across across Bell Street, down through Heidelberg, and we'd go out through Warrandyte, Kangaroo Ground, all hills on a fixed wheel. Or you went over the bridge at Warrandyte, we're having a quick day, we'd go over the bridge at Warrandyte and turn left. Come home up through research. Like, you know, climbing that hill out of Warrandyte on a 63 fixed wheel was, you soon got, you know, the power in your legs to get up over the hills. And of course, when it come time for the track, you had that power in your legs to be able to ride that much better.
I was riding around one day with him on this track, the old track, the bitumen one, and he said, where do you hold your hands when you sprint? I go, I said, down there. He said, no. He said, move up into the bends and bend your arms and pull. I said, righto Joe, I'll do that. And I did. And I gained about 6 or 7 feet. See, there's a younger man giving advice to an older man, which I appreciate.
One of the guys I trained with was Alan Grindle, but they called him the Spook. And he carried a notebook in his back pocket. And you give him a hard time one day, it'd go in the book. You know, it could be 12 months later, you pull his book out and you go, I owe you, and you knew you're in for that day.
Bruce Clark as well. His nickname was the Poser, but he was good. And just a general, he'd ride a good track race as a kind of a 6-day rider or a scratch race rider. But as a road rider, he was very, very fast at the finish. And we'd be riding along and he'd offer some advice along the way and say, look, if you get to the finish, do this, do that, and you learn from those guys.
Like if you didn't do the miles, like if you didn't put anything into it, you didn't get anything out of it in those days.
It shows that if you can ride the track, whether it's a handicap or a scratch race, you will go well on the road.
Harry would give you the time to teach you how to ride behind the motorbike, and then you had Boyley sitting beside you, telling you, right, you got to do this at this time, do this, do that. So you learnt how to ride once again on the track and how to handle your bike.
I remember old Jack McDonough, who was a good stalwart of the club, and he was always out there ready to help the younger generation.
The the Cup premierships used to be probably the main thing on the road. All clubs used to ride these premierships with a team of, I think it was either 4 or 5 riders. And to win it was something that was really prized. So this is the 20 Mile Senior Road Premiership 1931, won by Coburg.
Sydney Road would out and back about 50 miles or turn around about Tallarook or something. And the old road would be up pretty sally.
I can't think of the name, a little old hotel. And they used to race up to Tallarook and back again. That was 100 mile.
Bruce Clark came up to Brian Castle and held up 5 fingers, which was an indication of $500 for a lead out. Brian Castle just stuck his thumb up, that's it. So when it came to the finish of the race, nobody in the world could have beaten Bruce Clark with a lead out from Brian Carlson.
It is, well, my dad, Jack, not John X, a lot of people get confused with, did bring me up in the club. He always wanted me just to bring the club to either Warrnambool, I guess.
Yeah, Tom McDonough, Luke McDonough, and their father as well, who was, I think he finished 2nd in the Sun Tour behind Russell Mockridge. And he was a pretty big figure. And Tom McDonough is what you'd call a character. I remember him riding the Melbourne to Warrnambool one year. He didn't have a lift organised to get home. He rode to Warrnambool, got to the finish line, started asking people for a lift home. And Luke's always been a really big organiser within the sport. And I think he was pretty important to the Coburg Cycling Club. Yeah, really important early this century to keep the club going.
I was 11 years old, and the second one I was 15. Especially the second one, I was on the finishing line in Raglan parade in Warrnambool, and the dogs ran out in the middle of the road with about 250 to go, and he cleaned it up, like collected it full on. He went sideways, straightened up, and still won the race, but don't know how, because I couldn't even wheel the bike to the car.
And Mario, well, we had a business deal. He ran a shop in Fitzroy and I ran trucks. And every time I called in at the shop, Mario would say, "Where you go today?" So I'd say, "Right, you take this bike, you deliver it, you're right." Never ever got a penny off him. But I got equipment.
There was one night, like, you know, you talk to some of the guys that I race here, they'll tell you the night there's probably 300 people going around that track.
Yeah.
You're lined up on the run to get onto the board, onto the duck boards, to ride around the duck boards, hoping for a space so you can actually get up onto the track and do your warm up. Like, it was just, it was horrendous, the amount of riders. But yeah, there was no falls. Everybody knew what they were doing, and it was a good night.
They had to put a rope around inside the track and put the spectators in there. There was that many. All the stands were full, and I had to sit in the in on the grass or standing on the grass. It was a tremendous crowd. Yeah, I'd never seen anything like it.
How did you feel at that stage? Were you confident of holding Peter off?
Yeah, well, just before the furlong line, I had a bit of a look behind because I was feeling, reasonably well. I seen Peter there, and I knew he had the big gear on.
All right, well, there's the bell now. Can you point yourself out to us?
Yeah, I think I was second there then. Just had a bit of a look around at Pete then, and just started to make me move. And luckily, they didn't get round me.
All right, Peter moving wide on the track there.
Yeah, you can see him reefing the big gear there. But,
all right, well, a tremendous win there.
They started racing at Calder. Initially, it was really, really good because we hired it for like $100. We had barbecues and selling beer. That was another big asset of the club at the time.
I'm the sister of Dick.
Dick is one of the club legends.
Yes. Well, my father was involved long before Dick.
What did your father do for the club?
Oh, well, he rode back in the 1920s, 1930s. He was club champion. He rode with the likes of Ernie Milliken and Hefty Stewart, and he did very well. He certainly had, I've got a lot of trophies at home that belonged to my father. My father was the name as Alfred, but he always was under one of the first bike races he rode. A Plug was on the Sporting Globe thing, and they looked at it, and there was an Arch King at that stage, was one of the good riders. So they decided A might have stood for Arch. So he became Arch Plug, and he was Arch Plug till he died. Dick had lots of wins on the track. He rode in Tasmania in the first year he rode in the Junior Australian Championships, and he won just about everything.
Yeah, quick as a flash, quick as a flash. And popular too. He was never dirty that I knew of. I mean, I get a chance to see every bike on a ride, but the dirty ones stand out.
Reg Harris came out here, and Reg took an interest in him and gave him a lot of advice on how to win sprints, and he actually changed Dick into riding a 96 gear because Dick used to ride 88 or 92, and Reg sort of gave him a lot of coaching, and Dick's sprinting really, kicked on after that.
Jimmy and Jack and George. Jim, he was a great rider.
Was he?
But I don't think he was so intent on the club racing.
Okay.
I remember riding in the same Tour of Tassie as him, and it was the first time I'd seen it in a road racer. He had all these little sprints on the top bar, and ones that didn't carry a time bonus. You could see Jim sitting back, not taking a bit of notice of anybody else. But when there was a time bonus involved, boy, did he go.
Quick.
Oh, he was a good rider.
And there was Dick, there was Georgie Nevin, and there was Lindsay Cox, who rode with Brunswick but was always with our boys. They were the three from this area to go to the Commonwealth Games. So we finished up riding a dance down at the Brunswick Town Hall. We filled the Brunswick Town Hall, which took hundreds of people, and we ran this dance to raise money, and it raised enough that We divided it between the three boys and it helped them immensely.
Very fast, very calculating. He was just, just raw, just absolutely just fast.
In awe of, like, just watch this man, just to see how quick he was, just that turn of pace, he just was able to just click of the fingers and away he'd go.
Oh, perfect, perfect. He was class actors. I've seen fast bike riders, rough as guts. But Bruce Clark once told me, the name of the game, Aki, first over the line. They used to get over the line, smooth, rough, it didn't matter. But Ronnie Boyle, smooth as silk.
One of those guys, he just put his head down, that was it, he was gone. He was a very, very hard man to stay with. He was just strong.
Hard, tough, I'm going to win and you got to beat me. That's the way he was.
Kerry Hall was a rode for the amateurs and went on to be a world champion on the track. He turned pro and went away to the Worlds and won a world title. Plugie was the main instigator of getting that velodrome out there built. But Eric had a lot to do with helping run the bingo nights here. They used to run bingo here Tuesday and Thursday night.
Club rooms were built by and paid for by the Pro-Am clubs. The Pro Club, I believe, had a house, and the Amateur Club had a hall, and they sold those and put the money into the building. The track itself was built by, I think, the combination of state and federal governments.
But on the cycling front at Coburg, it was Jim Fawcett and Tom Probert to a large extent, and they got the Tuesday night racing going at Calder, so there's the criteriums at Calder, and then on the Saturday afternoon around Essendon Airport.
Jim Fawcett died. We lost a lot of good people. There was a very strong club membership. They were go-getters. They were, as I said before, because it was probably the first Pro-Am club, they weren't interested in amateurs or professionals. It was all bumps on bikes.
I started dating his daughter a couple of years later, and I'd be around their place after school, and this bike rider guy, Tom Probert, would drop in just to see how Jim's wife, Jan, was getting along, and I'd hear a few stories as a result of that about cycling, and then go out to the bike races when I started racing, and Tom Probert was one of the guys that was always there and getting things organised. He is a stalwart of the Coburg Cycling Club. I first rode the Jim Fawcett Memorial in 1993. I was off scratch as a junior, and within the first 15 kilometres in a 90k race, I was the only one left. There was a couple of mechanicals, and the rest of them just blew up. And I chased all day long, got fastest time, but I didn't win. I finished second, but I got fastest time. And I've still got that trophy. It's a little cup. I should have brought it with me. It's a little, like an old classic silver beer mug, and that sits in my kitchen, and I put all my loose change in it. It's the only trophy I've ever kept.
David came along as purely a historian type fella, and he, as I say, he was a man of the moment for the going into, looking into the past and looking into, he knew where to look for information about the history of and the past of the Coburg Pro and the Amateur Club. There was 2 registered riders. There was me and Tom McDonough, I think, at one stage.
Paul Logan were doing the bulk of the work at the time, and then they obviously got burnt out. They were obviously committing an enormous amount of hours to making sure the club runs. Then the new guy came on board, so it was basically Frank Harkin, Simon Welsh, Wayne Gibbett, myself. We came on board, gave it a new lease of life, put a lot of structure around the crits as a sort of calling card to get more activity around the club and grow the membership. The club, up until recently, was pretty much run by her, and her enormous gift to all the members, and that was the hundreds of hours she committed to making sure that crits were run, the club was run, that all the basics that now all of us as a committee make sure happen, she was doing it by herself.
It was a club that was running some very successful racing, but still had a very small membership base.
For the clubs to be successful, they need to be really welcoming, because cycling can be a confronting sport. It's a dangerous sport. It takes a massive time commitment. It's a big financial commitment. And if we're to grow it for the juniors, we need to make the parents welcome that don't have a background in cycling.
What Coburg Cycling Club means to me is it's always been a place where I've come to achieve my goals.
The cycling club means to me, it's really just a place where I can hang around with people who are interested in the same thing, passionate about the same things, and want to do good work with the community and want to keep cycling going in Australia.
Seems like a real sense of community. We're kind of the most northern of the metropolitan clubs, and the members that come from sort of all around the area. To our races, to the track, to some of the rec rides. It's a real community-focused club.
This is my core recreation now. It's my core friendship base.
I feel like the Coburg Cycling Club is part of my cycling DNA, and that's where it all started for me.
To me personally, I just reflect back on the years that my dad was there, and the friends that I've made through the club that I've still got, such as Aki, the Plugs, Ron Boyle, all those people there.
But I think also in terms of Coburg, the cycling club brought a great deal of sporting prestige to the area, because we had here, as you will tell in your own story, some of the greatest cyclists of the day.
What does it mean to me? I now feel an attachment with the Coburg Cycling Club that 10 years ago I would not have felt at all.
I've always been loyal to them and hope they do the same to me and look after me.
It's a basis where I made a hell of a lot of nice friends. It gave me a sense of being part of a team.
Well, it's a big part of my life, a big part, and I learned a lot of the human side of life. Not just racing and that, the human side of life out of it, and I appreciate what I got out of it.
The Coburg Cycling Club's meant to me, I suppose, has been, what am I, 56 now, so it's been 56 years of my life.
It was part and parcel of our life, and right from, I can remember coming up here at the track and going to the board track when, probably was about 5, 6, 7, something like that, but it was just part of our life.
It was our life. With the bikes.
I was always proud to ride the Coburg Cycling, be representative of the Coburg Cycling Club.
Means why I became addicted to cycling.
Everything. My life. Cycling is my life.
Oh, a lot of good times. Yeah, a lot of good racing. Definitely good racing.
So this documentary came about because we were going through some of the old archives of the Coburg Cycling Club and realised that there was such an incredible depth of history that had been compiled by David Halford, one of the old club members, who'd archived documents from even the 30s and 20s and photos and those things, and they were just sitting in crates. Something needed to be done about that, and coming up to our 120th anniversary, we felt that it was important that stories were actually told about the cycling club to give people a sense of history, what the club's about, where it came from, and possibly where it will go to in the future. So as a result of these documents, and in particular the sashes that Reggie Goodwin won on open tracks, grass tracks back in the 30s, this came about. So we've archived over 1,000 pieces of memorabilia. We've digitalised over 1,000 pieces of memorabilia. We've created this documentary which will go up and be a resource for people to actually see, and all the interviews will go up as well, so that people can look through the old interviews and see the whole conversation, as opposed to just what was snipped out of it and put into the documentary, because there's such a rich history in this club and so many stories that have actually been told on screen that it's integral that this is promoted for going forward into the club. So what history means to me, coming from a Coburg perspective, is that this documentary's taught me that we need to continue to actually make history as a club. We need to continue to grow and develop the club, and we need to provide an environment where people can come here and achieve their goals.